Hi everyone, welcome back to AB-Aquariums. I wanted to do a little video today just to talk about the saltwater side of the hobby, and for those that are interested in trying to dip their toes into that side, maybe some people call it the dark side. I don't really know why. It doesn't need to be any harder or any different to freshwater, just you're adding one more thing, and that's salt. So let's have a little look at this this setup behind me and talk about how we can make it a little bit easier for ourselves. See you in a minute. Okay, so here's my 6-foot saltwater aquarium. It's mostly fowler at the moment, which means fish only with live rock. There are a few corals thrown in that I moved over from another tank, but I'm going to call it fowler for now, just for the sake of argument of how to get into the saltwater side. It can be a lot easier just starting with fish only and then move on to corals when you've got a little bit more experience. But if you mainly kept freshwater tanks and you wanted to dip your toes into the saltwater side, then I'd definitely start with a fowler tank. And you may have heard before, a lot of people seem to say get the biggest tank that you possibly can, just so that any mistakes that you make is diluted in the bigger water volume. And that definitely makes a lot of sense. I'd definitely recommend that as well. I mean, you don't need to go for a tank as big as this, 6x2x2 with a 50-gallon sump. You don't need to go to that sort of size system. I think this is around 230 gallons or 800 litre system, so it's quite a lot of water. You don't really need to go to that sort of size system to start with, but if you can get a bigger tank, if you've got a bigger space you need to fill, then get the biggest tank that you can fit in that space, whether it's a 3-foot, 4-foot. You know, if you just wanted to try it, maybe try one of your freshwater tanks with a canister filter on it, or hang on the back filter or something like that, just to get you started. You don't need a sump. You can do it completely, internal. You don't need to have a drilled aquarium that has, the sump underneath and, filtration in that sense. You can definitely do it with canister filters, especially fowler, fish only with live rock. You don't really need to worry about having the parameters bang on, because the fish aren't so particular as corals. But yeah, I mean, the best thing you can really do is just set the aquarium up as you would normally with freshwater setup, add the salt. To start with, you can use your tap water and obviously dechlorinate the tap water, mix salt to the right ratios that it says on the bucket that you're buying, and you just follow the directions and get it to seawater levels, which is around 35 parts per thousand, or 1.026 specific gravity, and that's around seawater levels. And at least then you're around the right sort of levels for keeping marine fish, wherever they are from the world. It just depends on the temperature. Whether you want to keep tropical marine fish, which most of us do, you keep your tank around 25, 26 Celsius, something around there, and you should be good to go. But in here, as you can see, we've got some freshwater fish that seem to quite like salt. Mollies, quite a lot of people know you can keep them in brackish waters, and these guys have moved completely over to salt water and they're absolutely fine. So, you can start off with some easier fish that you're not investing a lot of money into when you just set your new saltwater aquarium up, that aren't going to get too big. These 3 mollies in here are absolutely fine. They're thriving in salt water. There's no problem at all. And it just depends on the size of the tank as to what stocking you'll get. But you can also add all sorts of fish. Your obligatory pair of clowns, which is going to have to be added. You can't not have a pair of clowns in your first saltwater tank. It's just how it is. I've got a Regal tank, it's a Regal Dory. Can't even say the name of it. Regal Tang Dory fish, whichever you want to call it. And it's only a baby at the moment, but because it's quite a big system, I can keep one of these. A lot of people might say you might need bigger, you can probably do it smaller, but we're going to grow this one out in this tank, and hopefully it'll be a nice home for it. But yeah, there's another tang there. It's a coal tang, that one, or a bristle tooth orange striped coal tang. Yeah, so you can certainly get all sorts of fish going on in there. Have a rockscape like you would just set your aquascape up like you would any other aquarium. You're just mainly using ocean rock. You can get it dry, you can get it already live rock that's already been submerged in salt water. You buy it already damp, but it's a very expensive way of doing it. You can do the same with the sand. I just got dry sand and dry rock and just made a scape. Nothing too crazy, a fairly standard stack of rocks really. And just season the tank over a few months with no lights on, and then turn the lights on a sort of lower setting, and it seems to be doing quite well. Not too much algae, a little bit growing on the rocks now, which is kind of like that start of the coralline starting to grow, which is what I like to see. And yeah, everything's doing pretty well in here. So I would definitely recommend, if you wanted to get into the saltwater side of the hobby, then try a fowler tank to start with. Get a few fish after you've obviously got the cycle and the season. The tank, you know, it's got everything's going well, and you know you can add fish. Maybe add a few easy clowns, they're quite hardy, or even like a trio of mollies like what I've done here, just, you know, just to get some life in the tank. There's nothing wrong with having some mollies in there that will be converted over to salt water. You can transfer them over to that, drip acclimate them, they'll be absolutely fine. So yeah, there's just a little look into the fowler saltwater aquarium side of the hobby. You know, you can look into corals later on down the road. I mean, I've got a couple of random ones in here, like a green splotch hammer coral. There's probably another name for that, but that's what I'm going to call it right now. A few zoas in here and a few mushrooms. I've got some really easy ones. There is one branching Montipora there under the strongest part of the light, and a plating Monty there, but they're quite easy to keep, and I don't really have a lot of faith in them doing overly well. I'm not dosing an awful lot to the tank, so I'm gonna keep an eye on them and see what I need to do in terms of dosing to keep them thriving. Especially as more coralline grows and more calcium is absorbed out of the water, that will definitely be a case of starting to dose the tank if I'm going to turn this into a coral tank and not only a fowler. But yeah, for the sake of argument, we're just going to go with the fowler idea for now. If you want to get into the saltwater side of the hobby, just start off like that. Get some fish that you've always wanted to keep, and yeah, I wish you the best of luck. So I hope you feel a little bit more inclined to give the saltwater side of the hobby a go. You know, whether you're feeling a little bit on the edge about whether they're giving it a go because it was a bit daunting, or you weren't too sure whether it was going to be too hard, I really do think you'll be able to do it. I mean, if you can keep freshwater fish thriving, then I think the saltwater side will be absolutely fine for you if you don't mind mixing a little bit of salt with water. That's the only difference really. Monitoring the tank like you would any other freshwater tank, I think you'll be absolutely fine. I wish you the best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.